A simple tattoo. For numbers. One devastating secret that changed everything. When seven-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton rolled up his sleeve during a routine interview at Silverstone, no one expected what happened next. The small 1111 tattoo on his wrist seemed innocent enough until he started talking about his mother Carmen. Within minutes, the usually confident racing superstar was fighting back tears. The story he told about making wishes at 1111 was beautiful, but something in his voice suggested there was more. Much more. What Lewis didn't reveal that day was the heart-wrenching truth behind those four simple numbers. A truth about sacrifice, love, and a mother's final wish that would leave millions around the world sobbing. This is the story Lewis wasn't ready to tell. Until now, the July sun beat down on Silverstone circuit as Lewis Hamilton walked into the Mercedes hospitality suite. His home race was just 3 days away, and the media buzz was already electric. British fans had been waiting all year for this moment. Sarah Chun adjusted her microphone and smiled as Lewis settled into the chair across from her. She had covered Formula One for 15 years, but interviewing Lewis at Silverstone never got old. The seven-time world champion looked relaxed in his simple white t-shirt and jeans. "Ready?" Sarah asked, checking her camera one last time. Lewis nodded and flashed his famous smile. "Let's do this." The interview started normally. They talked about the car's performance, his hopes for the weekend, and the incredible support from British fans. Lewis spoke with his usual confidence, gesturing with his hands as he explained the technical challenges of the Silverstone track. 20 minutes in, Lewis reached for his water bottle. As he lifted it, his sleeve rode up slightly. Sarah's trained eye caught something she had never noticed before, a small, delicate tattoo on his inner wrist. "Wait," Sarah said, pausing the recording. "Is that new ink?" Lewis looked down at his wrist and smiled softly. "This?" He rolled up his sleeve to reveal the tattoo clearly. "Yeah, got it a few months ago." The tattoo was simple but beautiful. The numbers 1111 were written in elegant script, with tiny angel wings underneath, and what looked like an infinity symbol woven between them. "I've never seen that before," Sarah said, leaning forward with curiosity. "What's the story behind it?" Lewis's entire demeanor changed. The confident race car driver seemed to melt away, replaced by something much more vulnerable. He stared at the tattoo for a long moment. "It's for my mom," he said quietly. Sarah felt the shift in energy immediately. In all her years of interviewing Lewis, she had never heard his voice sound quite like this. Soft, almost fragile. "Carmen?" Sarah asked gently. "Yeah." Lewis touched the tattoo with his other hand. "She always told me to make a wish at 1111. Said it was when angels were listening closest." The words hung in the air between them. Sarah could see tears forming in Lewis's eyes, though he was trying hard to maintain his composure. "She taught me that when I was 9 years old," Lewis continued, his voice growing quieter. "We lived in this tiny flat in Stevenage. Mom worked double shifts at the hospital, and I would wait up for her every night. She always checked the clock at 1111, no matter how tired she was." Lewis paused, swallowing hard. "She would close her eyes and make a wish. I asked her what she was wishing for, but she never told me. Just said it was between her and the angels." Sarah remained silent, sensing that Lewis needed to tell this story at his own pace. "One night, I caught her making her wish," Lewis said, a small smile crossing his face. "She was sitting at our kitchen table, bills spread everywhere. She looked so tired, so worried. But at 1111, she stopped everything and closed her eyes." He looked directly at Sarah now, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I asked her to teach me. She said I could make wishes too, but there was one rule: never wish for yourself. Always wish for someone you love." Sarah felt her own throat tighten with emotion. This was not the interview she had planned, but she knew she was witnessing something special. "So this tattoo," she said softly, "it's about those wishes?" Lewis nodded, unable to speak for a moment. He took a deep breath and tried to compose himself, but his voice still shook slightly. "Every day for 25 years, I've made a wish at 1111, morning and night, wherever I am in the world. And every single wish has been about her." A tear finally escaped and rolled down Lewis's cheek. He wiped it away quickly, but not before. The camera caught it. "She saved my life in so many ways," Lewis whispered. "This tattoo, It's so she knows I remember. So she knows I'm still making those wishes. Sarah felt tears in her own eyes now. She had interviewed hundreds of athletes, but she had never seen such raw emotion from someone usually so controlled. "Lewis," she said gently, "thank you for sharing that with us." He nodded and rolled his sleeve back down, covering the tattoo. But Sarah could tell there was more to this story, something deeper that he wasn't ready to share yet. "Can we keep recording?" Lewis asked, his voice stronger now. "I want people to know about 11/11. I want them to know about making wishes. For the people they love." Sarah nodded and restarted the camera. But as the interview continued, she couldn't stop thinking about the pain she had seen in Lewis's eyes when he talked about his mother. Something told her this story was far from over. Stevenage, England, December 1995. 9-year-old Lewis Hamilton pressed his face against the cold window of their council flat, watching for his mum's headlights. The kitchen table was covered with his homework, math worksheets, and a half-finished story about race cars. The fluorescent light above flickered on and off, casting strange shadows on the walls that it was past 10 o'clock. Carmen had been at the hospital since 6 that morning. Lewis heard her key in the lock and ran to the door. Carmen Hamilton stepped inside, still wearing her blue healthcare assistant uniform. Her shoulders sagged with exhaustion, and her dark hair had escaped from its ponytail. But when she saw Lewis waiting for her, her face lit up with a tired smile. "Why are you still awake, baby?" she asked, pulling him into a hug that smelled like hospital soap and her favorite vanilla perfume. "I finished my homework," Lewis said proudly, "and I wanted to wait for you." Carmen looked at the kitchen table and saw his neat handwriting on the worksheets. Her heart swelled with pride and guilt at the same time. Her son was raising himself, while she worked to keep them afloat. "Have you eaten dinner?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "I made beans on toast," Lewis said. "Saved you some." Carmen's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. 9 years old, and he was already taking care of her. They sat together at the small kitchen table, sharing the cold beans and toast. Lewis chattered about his day at school, about the boy who had teased him for wearing the same trainers every day, about the math test he had aced. "Mrs. Patterson says I'm the smartest in my class," Lewis said between bites. "Of course you are," Carmen said, ruffling his hair. "You get that from your grandmother in Granada. She was the wisest woman I ever knew." As they talked, Carmen glanced at the old clock on the wall. The minute hand crept closer to 11. Lewis noticed her watching it. "Mummy, why do you always look at the clock at 11:11? He asked. Carmen paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. She looked at her curious son with his bright eyes and innocent question. "Come here, baby," she said, patting her lap. Lewis climbed onto her lap, even though he was getting too big for it. Carmen wrapped her arms around him and pointed at the clock. "In Granada, where I grew up, my grandmother Amelia taught me something special about 11:11, Carmen began. "She said that when you see those numbers, all the ones lined up like little soldiers, that's when the angels are closest to us." Lewis's eyes grew wide. "Real angels? Real angels," Carmen confirmed. "Grandma Amelia said that when you see 11:11, you can make a wish and send it straight to heaven. The angels carry it right to God." "Did Grandma Amelia make wishes?" Carmen's voice grew soft with memory. "Every single day? She raised 7 children all by herself after my grandfather died in a fishing accident. Times were hard, Lewis. We didn't have much money, but Grandma never lost hope." She hugged Lewis tighter. Every night at 11:11, she would gather all of us children around her. We would close our eyes and make our wishes together. She said that when we wished as a family, the angels listened even closer. Lewis was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "What did you wish for when you were little?" "I wished for my children to have better lives than I had," Carmen said. "I wished for them to dream big dreams and never give up." The clock on the wall showed 11:10. Carmen noticed and smiled. "Look, Lewis, it's almost time." They both watched as the minute hand moved to the 11. 11:11 appeared on the old digital display. "Close your eyes, baby," Carmen whispered. Lewis squeezed his eyes shut tight. Carmen closed hers too, but kept one arm around her son. After a minute, Lewis opened his eyes. "What did you wish for, Mummy?" Carmen opened her eyes and looked down at him. "That's between me and the angels, baby. But I will tell you something. I made a wish about you." "What kind of wish?" A wish for your future. A wish for your happiness. A wish for you to know how much your mummy loves you. Louis smiled and snuggled closer to her. Can I make wishes too? Of course you can, Carmen said. But there's one very important rule. What rule? Carmen turned Louis to face her, looking directly into his eyes. Never wish for yourself, Louis. Always wish for someone you love. The angels like those wishes best. Louis nodded seriously. I promise, Mummy. And Louis, yes, promise me something else. When you see 1111, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that your mummy loves you more than all the stars in the sky. I promise, Louis said, his voice small but determined. Carmen held him close as the clock ticked past 1111. Outside their small flat, Stevenage was quiet and dark. But inside, a mother and son had just begun a ritual that would connect them for the rest of their lives. Later, as Carmen tucked Louis into his narrow bed, he asked one more question. Mummy, will the angels really listen to me? Carmen kissed his forehead. Baby, the angels have been listening to you since the day you were born. They're the reason you're so special. How do you know? Because you're my miracle, Carmen whispered. And miracles come from angels. Louis fell asleep that night with a smile on his face, already planning his first 1111 wish. He didn't know that his mother stayed awake much longer, sitting at the kitchen table with bills spread before her, making wish after wish for her son's future. T 1111 the next morning, as Louis sat in his classroom at school, he remembered his promise. He closed his eyes and made his very first angel wish, not for a new toy or sweets, but for his mummy to never be so tired again. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, noticed Louis with his eyes closed and asked if he was feeling unwell. No, Miss, Louis said with a mysterious smile. I was just talking to the angels. Rye House Cart Circuit, England, May 1998. The smell of burning rubber and petrol filled the air as 12-year-old Lewis Hamilton adjusted his helmet straps. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from pure excitement. After months of saving every penny, Anthony Hamilton had finally bought his son a second-hand cart. Remember what I taught you? Anthony said, crouching beside the small racing machine. Smooth inputs. Feel the track through your hands. Louis nodded, but his eyes were scanning the crowd of spectators. Carmen had promised to come after her morning shift at the hospital. She had never seen him race before. She'll be here, Anthony said, noticing his son's worried expression. The other boys in Louis's age group looked confident and relaxed. Their carts were newer, shinier. Their racing suits didn't have patches sewn over holes. But Louis didn't care. He had been dreaming of this moment for 3 years. The practice session began, and Louis climbed into his cart. The engine roared to life beneath him, and suddenly nothing else mattered. The track called to him like an old friend. He started slowly, learning the corners, feeling how the cart responded to his touch. By his third lap, he was keeping up with the other drivers. By his fifth, he was passing them. Look at that kid go, someone said from the sidelines. Louis was flying. The cart felt like an extension of his body. Every turn, every brake point, every acceleration felt natural and right. This was what he was meant to do. Then, on his 10th lap, disaster struck. Coming into the hairpin turn too fast, Louis lost control. The cart spun sideways and slammed hard into the tire barrier. The impact knocked the wind out of him, and for a moment, everything went silent. Track marshals rushed over as Louis slowly climbed out of the damaged cart. His helmet was cracked, and his left arm throbbed with pain. But he was more worried about the cart than himself. I'm sorry, Dad, Louis said as Anthony reached him. I broke it. Forget the cart, Anthony said, his voice shaky with relief. Are you hurt? Louis was taken to the track's medical center for a checkup. As he sat on the examination table, his arm in a temporary sling, he noticed the clock on the wall. The hands were moving toward 11 p.m. exactly 11:11 a.m. Louis closed his eyes. His wish wasn't for himself to be okay. It wasn't even for the cart to be fixed. Instead, he made the same wish he had been making every day for 3 years. Please let my mom never have to work so hard again, he whispered silently, and help me find a way to take care of her. When he opened his eyes, Carmen was standing in the doorway. She looked terrified, still wearing her blue hospital uniform. Her hair was messy from running, and her eyes were red with worry. Louis, she cried, rushing to his side. Baby, are you hurt? I'm okay, Mom, Lewis said, trying to sound braver than he felt. Just a little bump. Carmen examined him carefully, her healthcare training taking over. She checked his pupils, felt his pulse, asked him questions about pain and dizziness. The doctor says he's fine, Anthony reported. Just bruised. Carmen finally relaxed and pulled Lewis into a gentle hug. You scared me to death, she whispered. I'm sorry, Mom. Carmen pulled back and looked into her son's eyes. Lewis, why do you want to do this? Racing is so dangerous. Lewis was quiet for a moment. How could he explain the feeling he got behind the wheel? How could he tell her that racing felt like talking to angels? Mom, I'm going to be a Formula One driver, he said with absolute certainty. Carmen blinked in surprise. Lewis, that's a lovely dream. But no, Mom, not a dream. A promise. Lewis's voice was stronger now. I'm going to race in Formula One, and I'm going to win. And when I do, you'll never have to work another double shift again. Tears filled Carmen's eyes. Oh, baby, I felt it today, Lewis continued. Even when I crashed, I felt it. This is what I'm supposed to do. The angels told me. Carmen looked at her 12-year-old son, seeing something in his eyes she had never seen before. Determination. Destiny. Purpose. I believe you, Lewis, she said quietly. I've always believed in you. Anthony cleared his throat. Well, if you're going to be a Formula One driver, we better get that cart fixed. Lewis grinned despite his sore arm. Can we afford it? We'll find a way, Anthony said. We always do. That afternoon, after the cart was repaired with borrowed parts and duct tape, Lewis was back on track for the afternoon's race. Carmen watched nervously from the fence, her hands clasped together. The race was 20 laps around the small circuit. Lewis started near the back of the field, but he didn't stay there long. One by one, he passed the other drivers. His cart was slower than theirs, but his skill was undeniable. With 5 laps to go, Lewis took the lead. The crowd began to notice the boy in the patched racing suit who was leaving everyone behind. Carmen found herself cheering louder than she had ever cheered for anything. Lewis crossed the finish line first, winning by nearly 10 seconds as he climbed out of his cart. Lewis searched the crowd until he found Carmen. She was crying and laughing at the same time, jumping up and down like a little girl. Lewis ran to the fence where she stood. Even though the barriers separated them, he reached up and touched his wrist, then pointed at her. 11:11, he mouthed. Silently, Carmen understood immediately. She touched her own wrist and mouthed back, I love you. On the podium, holding his first real racing trophy, Lewis looked out at his parents. Anthony was beaming with pride, taking pictures with an old camera. Carmen was still crying happy tears, but Lewis noticed something else in his mother's expression. Worry, fear, not about his safety, but about something deeper. That night, as they drove home in Anthony's old car, Lewis overheard his parents talking quietly in the front seat. We can't afford this, Carmen was saying. The cart, the fuel, the entry fees. It's too much. He's special. Carmen, Anthony replied. You saw what he did today. I know he's special, but we're barely making rent as it is. Lewis pretended to be asleep in the back seat, but his heart was breaking. His dream was becoming his family's nightmare. That night, at 11:11 p.m., Lewis made a different wish. He wished for a way to race without hurting his family. He wished for someone to help them. He wished for his parents to stop fighting about money. But most of all, he wished that his mom would understand that racing wasn't just something he wanted to do. It was something he had to do. The angels, it seemed, were listening very carefully. Stevenage and various karting circuits. 2000-2000 and 2 years later, the cracks in the Hamilton family were impossible to ignore. Lewis, now 14, could hear his parents arguing through the thin walls of their flat almost every night. It was always about the same thing, money. We can't keep doing this, Anthony. Carmen's voice carried from the kitchen. The mortgage is 2 months behind. I'm working 60 hours a week, and it's still not enough. But look how good he is, Anthony replied, his voice strained. Lewis won 4 races this season. The scouts are starting to notice. And what happens when he gets hurt? What happens when this dream doesn't work out? Lewis sat on his bed, pretending to do homework while his heart broke a little more each night. His racing success was tearing his family apart. At 15, Lewis was clearly the most talented driver in his age group. But talent cost money. Every race weekend meant fuel, tires, entry fees, and travel expenses. Carmen had taken a second job cleaning offices in the evenings. Anthony worked overtime at the railway whenever possible. The night everything changed, Lewis was staying at his friend Marcus Bailey's house. Marcus was a young mechanic who helped with Lewis's cart, and his mother Sarah had invited Lewis for dinner. "Your mom called," Sarah Bailey told Lewis as they ate. "She said to tell you she loves you and to stay here tonight." Lewis knew immediately that something was wrong. Carmen never let him stay out on school nights. Marcus, who was only 17 but wise beyond his years, seemed to understand too. His own mother had died when he was 10, leaving him to live with his grandmother. "Sometimes parents need space to talk about grown-up things," Marcus said quietly. Lewis nodded, but his stomach churned with worry. At 11:11 that night, lying in Marcus's spare bed, he made his usual wish for his mother's happiness. But this time, he added something new. He wished for his family to stay together. The next morning, Anthony picked him up with red, tired eyes. "Son, we need to talk," Anthony said as they drove home. Lewis's heart sank. He knew what was coming. "Your mom and we're going to live apart for a while," Anthony explained, his voice barely steady. "It doesn't mean we love you any less. It just means we need some time to figure things out." "Is it because of my racing?" Lewis asked, the question he had been dreading. Anthony was quiet for a long moment. "Lewis, your racing isn't the problem. The problem is that we want to give you everything, but we don't know how." When they arrived home, Carmen was packing boxes in the living room. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but she smiled when she saw Lewis. "Come here, baby," she said, pulling him into a tight hug. "Mom, I'll quit racing," Lewis said desperately. "I don't need to race anymore." Carmen pulled back and looked at him with fierce intensity. "Lewis Hamilton, don't you ever say that again. Racing is your gift. Don't you dare give up your gift. Because your parents are struggling. But if I didn't race, you and Dad could." "No," Carmen said firmly. "This isn't about racing. This is about your dad and me needing to learn how to be better people for you." Over the next few months, Lewis split his time between his parents' separate homes. Carmen moved to a smaller flat closer to the hospital where she now worked full-time. Anthony kept the original flat and continued managing Lewis's racing career. The hardest part was watching Carmen work herself to exhaustion. She picked up extra shifts whenever possible, often working 16-hour days. Lewis barely saw her except at race weekends when she made the effort to attend one night in late 2001. Lewis was staying at Carmen's flat. He woke up at 2 a.m. to get a drink of water and found his mother sitting at the kitchen table. Bills were spread out in front of her, and she was using a calculator, moving numbers around, trying to make them work. Lewis watched from the doorway as his mother put her head in her hands. The clock on the microwave showed 11:11 p.m., and Lewis saw Carmen look up at it through her fingers. She whispered something so quietly Lewis could barely hear it. "Please let my boy achieve his dreams. Don't let my problems hold him back. Give him everything I never had." Lewis felt tears running down his face. His mother was sacrificing everything for him, even her marriage, even her own happiness. He crept back to his room and set his alarm for 11:11 a.m. From that day forward, he would make 2 wishes every day instead of 1. The second wish was always the same: for his mother to find happiness again at the karting track. Marcus became Lewis's closest friend and confidant. Marcus understood loss in a way that other teenagers couldn't. His mother had died in a car accident, and he had been raised by his grandmother who also passed away when he was 16. "You know what my mom used to tell me?" Marcus said one day as they worked on Lewis's kart engine. "She said that love isn't what you say, it's what you do." Lewis looked up from the carburetor he was cleaning. "What do you mean?" "Your mom's love is in every lap you drive," Marcus explained. "Every time you win, that's her love working through you. She's not sacrificing for racing. She's investing in your future." Those words stuck with Lewis. When he felt guilty about the cost of racing, he remembered what Marcus said. Carmen wasn't losing anything. She was building something. But the separation was taking its toll on everyone. Lewis's grades at school began to slip. He became quieter, more focused, but also more isolated from other kids his age. The only time Lewis felt truly alive was when he was racing. Behind the wheel, all the family problems disappeared. There was only speed, precision, and the pure joy of competition. Carmen noticed the change in her son. One evening, as they shared dinner at her small flat, she brought it up. "Louis, are you okay? Really okay?" Louis wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to say that he felt responsible for breaking up their family. He wanted to ask her to forgive him for being expensive. Instead, he just nodded. "I'm fine, Mom." Carmen studied his face. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" "I know." That night, at 11:11, Carmen made a wish she had never made before. She wished for wisdom to know if she was doing the right thing. She wished for strength to keep going. And she wished for Louis to forgive her for the chaos in their family. What she didn't know was that Louis was making the exact same wishes about her. 3 months later, at a race in Birmingham, Louis had his best performance yet. He won by over 20 seconds, lapping several drivers in the process. After the race, a man in an expensive suit approached Anthony. "Mr. Hamilton, I'm Ron Dennis from McLaren. I think we should talk about your son's future." Louis overheard the conversation from across the paddock. McLaren, the Formula One team. They were interested in him. That night, Louis called Carmen to tell her the news. "They want to put me in their young driver program," Louis said, barely able to contain his excitement. "Oh my God, Louis," Carmen whispered. "This is it. This is your chance." "Mom." "Yes, baby. I think the angels have been listening to our wishes." Carmen laughed through her tears. "I think you're right." What neither of them knew was that the biggest test of their faith was still to come. McLaren Technology Center, Woking, March 2007. 20-2-year-old Lewis Hamilton stood in the gleaming McLaren factory, still unable to believe this moment was real. The walls were covered with photos of Formula One legends: Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, Mika Hakkinen. Soon, his picture might hang here too. Ron Dennis, the McLaren team principal, had just finished the press conference announcing Louis as their new driver for the 2007 season. The room had been packed with journalists from around the world, all asking the same question: was this young man ready for Formula One? Louis felt ready. He had worked toward this moment for 15 years, through junior formulas, through GP2, through countless sacrifices by his family. But standing here now, the weight of expectation felt enormous. "How does it feel?" asked a journalist from Sky Sports. "Like a dream I'm afraid I might wake up from," Louis answered honestly. After the press conference, Louis stepped outside the McLaren factory and pulled out his phone. The first call was always to Carmen. She answered on the second ring. "Louis, I've been watching online. I'm so proud of you, baby." "We did it, Mom," Louis said, his voice thick with emotion. "We actually did it." "No, Louis. You did it. I just loved you through it." Louis could hear that Carmen was crying. After all these years of struggle, sacrifice, and separation, her son was going to race in Formula One. "Are you at work?" Louis asked. "Yes, but I stepped outside to take your call," Carmen said. "The whole hospital is buzzing about it. Everyone knows my son is going to be a Formula One driver." Louis smiled. Even after everything they had been through, Carmen still worked at the hospital. She could have stopped working years ago when Louis started earning money in the junior formulas, but she insisted on keeping her job. "I'm proud of what I do," she always said when Louis asked her to retire. "Taking care of people gives my life meaning." That evening, Louis drove to Carmen's flat in Stevenage. It was still small, still in the same building where she had moved after the separation. Carmen had refused Louis's offers to buy her a bigger place. "This is my home," she always said. "I don't need anything fancy." Louis found her in the kitchen, preparing his favorite meal: curry goat with rice and peas, the same recipe her grandmother had taught her in Granada. "Celebration dinner," Carmen announced as Louis walked in. They ate together at the same small table where Louis had done his homework as a child. The fluorescent lights still flickered occasionally, but Carmen had never bothered to fix it. "Remember when you were 9 and you said you wanted to be a race car driver?" Carmen asked between bites. "I remember you believed me when nobody else did," Louis replied. "I believed in you because I could see it in your eyes. You had that look, like you already knew your destiny." As they talked, Louis noticed Carmen glancing at her phone to check the time. Old habits never died. "Still making wishes at 11:11?" he asked with a smile. Carmen nodded. "Every day?" "Same wish for 7 years now." Louis was curious. "What do you wish for?" Carmen's expression became mysterious. "You'll know when it comes true." Lewis had learned not to push when his mother got that look. Carmen kept some things close to her heart, and her 1111 wishes were sacred to her. "What do you wish for?" Carmen asked. "Same thing I've wished for since I was 12, Lewis said. "For you to be happy and proud of me." Carmen reached across the table and took his hand. "Baby, I've been proud of you since the day you were born." That wish came true a long time ago. As the evening went on, they talked about the journey that had brought them to this moment. The early mornings at karting tracks. The nights Carmen worked double shifts to pay for race entries. The years when they barely saw each other because of her work schedule and his racing commitments. "Do you ever regret it?" Lewis asked. "All the sacrifices you made." Carmen looked at him with such intensity that Lewis felt like she could see straight into his soul. "Lewis, listen to me carefully. Love isn't sacrifice when it's for your child. Love is investment. Every hour I worked, every penny I saved, every tear I cried, that was me investing in your future." Lewis felt his eyes fill with tears. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Carmen said. "You just need to be the man I raised you to be. Be kind, be grateful, and never forget where you came from." Later that night, as Lewis prepared to leave, Carmen went to her bedroom and returned with a small gift box. "What's this?" Lewis asked. "Something I've been saving for this day," Carmen said. Lewis opened the box to find a simple silver bracelet. It was elegant but not flashy, exactly his style. "Turn it over," Carmen instructed. On the inside of the bracelet, Lewis found an engraving in Carmen's handwriting. 1111. "Angels are listening. Love, Mom." Lewis's throat tightened as he read the words. "Mom, so you can remember our ritual no matter where you are in the world," Carmen explained. "When you see 1111, you'll think of home." Lewis put the bracelet on immediately. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made specifically for his wrist. "I'll wear it every day," he promised. "I hope you do," Carmen said. "Because every time you look at it, I want you to remember that your mother believes in you completely." As Lewis drove home that night, he kept glancing at the bracelet on his wrist. Tomorrow, he would begin the biggest challenge of his life. In just a few weeks, he would be racing against the best drivers in the world. The pressure was enormous. Some people expected him to fail. Others expected miracles. But Lewis felt calm because he knew something that his critics didn't understand. He wasn't carrying this dream alone. Every lap he drove would be powered by 15 years of his mother's love. Every corner he took would be guided by her faith in him. Every victory would be theirs to share. At exactly 11:11 p.m., as Lewis stopped at a red light, he looked at his new bracelet and made his wish. "Thank you for getting us here," he whispered. "Now help me make her proud." The light turned green, and Lewis drove toward his future, carrying his mother's love with him like armor. Behind him, in her small flat in Stevenage, Carmen was making her own 11:11 wish. But tonight, for the first time in 7 years, her wish was different. "He's ready now," she whispered to the angels. "Time for my new wish to begin." She didn't tell Lewis what her new wish was. But in the months to come, as her son took the Formula One world by storm, Carmen would make the same new wish every single day at 11:11. And the angels, as always, were listening very carefully. Various F1 circuits. 2007 season. The roar of 80,000 fans at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal was deafening. Lewis Hamilton sat in his McLaren, waiting for the formation lap to begin. This was only his 6th Formula One race, but something felt different today. "Special. Radio check, Lewis," came the voice of his race engineer through his helmet. Loud and clear, Lewis replied, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. As the cars pulled away for the formation lap, Lewis caught sight of a timing screen showing 11:11 local time. Without thinking, he closed his eyes for just a second and made his usual wish, for his mother to be proud. 69 laps later, Lewis Hamilton crossed the finish line as the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix, his first Formula One victory. At 22 years old, he was the youngest British driver ever to win an F1 race. In the chaos of celebration, as champagne sprayed and cameras flashed, Lewis's first thought was of Carmen. She wasn't here. She couldn't afford to miss work for every race, but he knew she was watching somewhere. Lewis, how does it feel?" shouted reporters as he climbed out of the car. "Unbelievable," Lewis laughed, still in shock. I can't believe this is real. But even in the madness of his first victory, Lewis remembered the time. He looked at the giant timing screen above the grandstand. 2:11 p.m. He silently thanked the angels for listening at 11:11 that morning. That night, Lewis called Carmen from his hotel room in Montreal. I watched every single lap, Carmen said before Lewis could even speak. I screamed so loud the neighbors probably think I'm crazy. We did it, Mom, Lewis said, tears streaming down his face. I won my first race. No, baby, you did it. I just believed in you. The whole time I was racing, I could feel you with me, Lewis said. Every corner, every overtake, it was like you were guiding me. Carmen was quiet for a moment. Maybe I was, in a way. Maybe that's how love works. As the 2007 season continued, Lewis's performances became the talk of the motorsport world. He finished on the podium in his first 9 races, a record that had never been achieved by a rookie at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Carmen managed to take time off work to attend. Lewis spotted her in the paddock wearing her blue hospital uniform. She had flown directly from a night shift to be there. Mom, Lewis called out, running over to embrace her. I couldn't miss this one, Carmen said, hugging him tight. Hungary was always special to your great-grandmother. She said Hungarian people had angel hearts. The race that followed was magical. Lewis started from pole position and led every single lap, winning by over 20 seconds. It was a perfect performance. After the race, in a quiet moment away from the cameras and crowds, Lewis and Carmen sat together in the McLaren hospitality unit. Do you remember what you taught me about 11:11? Lewis asked. Of course I do. Do you still make wishes every day? Carmen nodded. Every single day? Twice a day, actually. The same wish. No, Carmen said with a mysterious smile. My wishes have been evolving as you've grown up. Lewis was about to ask what she meant when his phone buzzed. It was exactly 11:11 p.m. local time. Both mother and son closed their eyes simultaneously. Lewis made his usual wish for Carmen's happiness and health. Carmen made her own silent wish. But as always, she kept it to herself. When they opened their eyes, Carmen was looking at Lewis with such love and pride that he felt overwhelmed. What did you wish for? Lewis asked. Same thing I always wish for. Now, Carmen said, that you find your true purpose and never lose sight of who you are. What do you mean, my true purpose? Isn't this it? Carmen touched his face gently. Racing is your gift, Lewis. But your purpose is bigger than racing. You'll understand someday. As the season progressed toward its dramatic conclusion, Lewis faced increasing pressure and criticism. Some journalists questioned whether he deserved his success. Others suggested he was only winning because of his car, not his talent. During a particularly brutal week of negative coverage, Lewis felt overwhelmed. The British press, which had celebrated him months earlier, now seemed determined to tear him down. That he called Carmen from his apartment in Switzerland, feeling defeated. They're saying I don't belong here, Lewis said. They're saying I'm not good enough. Lewis, listen to me, Carmen said firmly. Remember what I taught you about 11:11? It's not about asking for easy. It's about asking for strength. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. You are, Carmen said with absolute certainty. You're stronger than you know. But more importantly, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. How do you know? Because for 22 years, I've been wishing for you to find your place in the world. And you have. This is it, Lewis. This is your destiny. Lewis felt better after talking to his mother, but the pressure continued to mount. Going into the final race in Brazil, he had a chance to become world champion in his rookie season, something that had never been done before. The race was held in treacherous wet conditions. Lewis needed to finish in the top 5 to guarantee the championship, but the rain made everything unpredictable. Carmen couldn't afford to travel to Brazil, so she watched from the hospital break room with her colleagues. As the race unfolded, Lewis slipped down the order. With 10 laps to go, he was in 7th place and losing the championship. Come on, Lewis, Carmen whispered to the television screen. But in the final laps, other drivers made mistakes in the difficult conditions. Lewis held his nerve and brought his car home in 7th place. It wasn't enough for the championship. He finished just 1 point behind Kimi Räikkönen. Carmen watched her son climb out of his car, devastated by coming so close to the ultimate prize. Her heart broke for him. That night, Lewis called her from his hotel in Sao Paulo. I'm sorry, Mom, he said, his voice hollow with disappointment. "I let everyone down." "Lewis Hamilton, you listen to me right now," Carmen said with fierce intensity. "You didn't let anyone down. You just completed the most incredible rookie season in Formula One history. You won 4 races. You nearly won the championship in your first year. You should be proud. But I was so close. And you'll be even closer. Next year. This isn't the end of your story, baby. This is just the beginning." After they hung up, Lewis sat in his hotel room, feeling empty. At 11:11 p.m. local time, he looked at the bracelet his mother had given him and made a wish. "Help me understand why this happened. Help me learn from this. And help me come back stronger." His phone buzzed immediately with a text from Carmen, sent at exactly 11:11. The wish continues. "I love you. The angels aren't finished with you yet." Lewis stared at the message, feeling something shift inside him. His mother was right. This wasn't an ending. This was preparation. He didn't know it yet, but Carmen's new wish, the one she had been making since his McLaren signing, was about to be answered in ways neither of them could imagine. The angels, as always, had been listening to every word. Interlagos, Brazil. November 2nd, 2008. The rain hammered down on the Interlagos circuit as Lewis Hamilton sat in his McLaren, waiting for the final race of the 2008 season to begin. The championship fight had come down to this moment. Lewis needed to finish 5th or better to become world champion. Carmen was watching from the McLaren hospitality unit, her hands clasped together in prayer. She had managed to get time off work for this crucial race. Her blue hospital uniform was folded neatly in her bag. She would fly back to London immediately after the race to work her night shift. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "Everything we've worked for." The race began in treacherous conditions. Lewis started 4th, but the wet track made every corner dangerous. Cars were sliding off the circuit. Championship dreams were being decided by millimeters. For 55 laps, Lewis drove the race of his life. He moved up to 2nd place, then fell back to 6th as other drivers made desperate moves. The championship swung back and forth with every position change. Carmen couldn't watch. She paced around the hospitality unit, checking her phone constantly for updates. Other McLaren family members tried to reassure her, but she couldn't shake her nervousness. With 10 laps to go, Lewis was running 5th, exactly where he needed to be. But Ferrari's Felipe Massa was leading the race. If Massa won and Lewis finished 5th, Massa would be champion by 1 point. "Come on, Lewis," Carmen prayed. "You can do this." In the final corners of the final lap, drama unfolded. Sebastian Vettel, who had been running 4th, suddenly slowed with a mechanical problem. Lewis moved up to 4th place just as he crossed the finish line. The championship was his. Carmen looked at her watch as the checkered flag waved. 2:11 p.m. local time. But more importantly, she remembered making her morning wish at 11:11 a.m., just as she had done every day for over a year. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for answering." In the McLaren garage, chaos erupted. Mechanics were crying, hugging each other, jumping up and down. Lewis had become the youngest Formula One world champion in history and Britain's first black F1 champion. Lewis climbed out of his car, overwhelmed with emotion. The moment felt surreal. 12 years ago, he had been karting in Stevenage, promising his mother he would take care of her someday. Now he was world champion. When he finally reached Carmen in the celebrations, they held each other and cried. No words were needed. They both understood what this moment meant. "I kept my promise, Mom," Lewis finally managed to say. "I said I'd take care of you." Carmen pulled back and looked into his eyes. "You already have, baby. You already have." The celebration continued long into the night. Lewis did interviews with journalists from around the world. He posed for photos with his championship trophy. He called his father, his friends, his team members. But the moment that mattered most came later. In the quiet of his hotel room at exactly 11:11 p.m., Lewis's phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. The wish came true today. Time for a new one. Lewis immediately called her. "Mom, what was the wish?" "The one you've been making for over a year." For the first time since he was a child, Carmen answered directly. "I wish that you would find your purpose and know how much you're loved," she said. "Tonight, watching you on that podium, I knew both had happened." Lewis felt tears coming again. "What do you mean, my purpose?" "Racing was always your gift, Lewis. But your purpose is to show the world that dreams can come true if you work hard enough and believe strongly enough. Tonight, you became proof that anything is possible. Lewis understood. He wasn't just a race car driver anymore. He was a symbol of hope for kids who looked like him, who came from places like Stevenage, who had parents working double shifts to support their dreams. "So what's your new wish?" Lewis asked. Carmen was quiet for a moment. "That's between me and the angels for now. But I promise you'll know when it comes true." Lewis smiled despite his exhaustion. Some things never changed. His mother would always keep her deepest wishes close to her heart. Over the following days, as Lewis traveled around the world celebrating his championship, he began to understand what Carmen meant about his purpose. Everywhere he went, people told him what his success meant to them. A young black boy in London said Lewis proved he could dream of being a race car driver too. A single mother in Birmingham said Lewis showed her that sacrificing for her children's dreams was worth it. An elderly man in Jamaica said Lewis made him proud to be of Caribbean heritage. Lewis realized that his championship belonged to all of them. It belonged to everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong, who had ever been counted out, who had ever been considered different. But most of all, it belonged to Carmen. Every lap he had driven, every victory he had earned, every moment of this incredible journey had been powered by her love and faith. 3 weeks after winning the championship, Lewis was back in Stevenage, visiting Carmen's flat. The same small kitchen table where he had done his homework as a child was now covered with newspapers featuring his championship victory. "Look at this," Carmen said, showing him a photo of himself holding the trophy. "My baby is world champion." "Our baby," Lewis corrected. "This championship belongs to you too." Carmen shook her head. "No, Lewis. This is yours. You earned every bit of it." As they sat together that evening, Lewis noticed Carmen checking the time on her phone. "Still making wishes at 11:11?" he asked. "Every day," Carmen confirmed. "Old habits. The same new wish." "For now," she said mysteriously at 11:11 that night. Both mother and son closed their eyes as they had done thousands of times before. Lewis made his usual wish for Carmen's health and happiness. Carmen made her new wish, the one Lewis wouldn't understand for many years to come. When they opened their eyes, Carmen was smiling at Lewis with such love and pride that he felt overwhelmed. "What?" he asked. "I was just thinking about 9-year-old Lewis, sitting at this same table, asking me about 11:11 for the first time," Carmen said. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" Lewis looked around the small flat. Still the same fluorescent light, still the same old furniture, still the same humble home where his dreams had begun. "No," he said honestly, "but I'm glad we did it. Together." Carmen reached across and squeezed his hand. "We're not done yet, you know. This is just the beginning." Lewis didn't know what she meant by that, but he trusted her completely. Carmen had guided him this far. Whatever came next, they would face it together, one 11:11 wish at a time. Outside their window, Stevenage slept peacefully. But somewhere in the darkness, the angels were listening to a mother's new wish, one that would change both their lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Various locations. 2009-2015, the years following Lewis's first championship, brought changes that neither he nor Carmen had expected. Success in Formula One opened doors to a world they had never imagined. Fashion shows in Milan, movie premieres in Hollywood, meetings with world leaders. But with fame came challenges that no amount of 11:11 wishes could have prepared them for. Lewis's relationship with his father Anthony became complicated as Anthony stepped back from managing his career. The racing world that had brought them together now seemed to pull them apart. Carmen found herself becoming Lewis's primary emotional anchor during this difficult time. "I don't understand what's happening with Dad," Lewis confided to Carmen during a phone call from Monaco, where he now lived. "It's like he doesn't know how to be my father anymore, only my manager." "Give him time, baby," Carmen said gently. "Success changes everyone differently. Your dad is learning too. But what about us? Are we changing too?" Carmen was quiet for a moment. "Lewis, success doesn't change who you are. It just shows the world who you've always been." During this period, Lewis began exploring his identity more deeply. Being Britain's first black Formula One champion came with responsibilities he was still learning to understand. Young black children would approach him at events, saying he made them believe they could dream bigger. Carmen encouraged this journey of self-discovery. One afternoon, as they sat in her flat in Stevenage, she still refused to move despite Lewis's success. She shared a story he had never heard before. "Your great-grandmother Amelia used to say something I never told you," Carmen said. She said that when God gives you a platform, it's not just for you. It's for everyone who looks like you and dreams like you. "What do you mean? You have a voice now, Lewis. People listen when you speak. That's a gift, but it's also a responsibility." Lewis began to understand. He started visiting schools in disadvantaged communities, often in secret, without media attention. He would talk to children about dreaming big, working hard, and never giving up. During one visit to a primary school in Birmingham, a young girl raised her hand during his talk. "Mr. Hamilton, what are those marks on your arms?" she asked, pointing to his tattoos. Lewis rolled up his sleeve to show her some of his ink. But there was no 11/11 tattoo yet. That would come much later. "These are reminders of important things in my life," Lewis explained to the children. "My family, my beliefs, my journey." "Do they hurt when you get them?" asked a boy in the front row. "A little," Lewis admitted. "But sometimes the most important things require a little pain to remind us how much they mean." After the school visit, Lewis felt energized in a way that racing rarely provided anymore. Talking to those children, seeing their faces light up with possibility, felt like he was fulfilling a purpose beyond driving fast cars. That night, at 11:11, he made a different wish than usual. Instead of wishing for Carmen's happiness, he wished for wisdom to know how to use his platform properly. Carmen, meanwhile, continued working at the hospital despite Lewis's repeated offers to help her retire. She was now in her 50s and could easily afford to stop working, but she always refused. "I'm not ready," she would say whenever Lewis brought it up. "This work gives my life meaning." Lewis didn't understand her decision, but he respected it. He had learned that Carmen made choices for reasons that weren't always obvious, but were always wise. Their 11:11 ritual continued, adapted for Lewis's global lifestyle. No matter what time zone he was in, they would often text each other at their respective 11:11 moments. Carmen would send simple messages, "Thinking of you. Love you, baby. Stay strong." Lewis's career had ups and downs during this period. He won the 2014 and 2015 World Championships, but there were also seasons of struggle and disappointment. Through it all, Carmen remained his constant source of support. During a particularly difficult period in 2013, when Lewis was struggling with his McLaren car and considering his future, he called Carmen feeling lost. "I don't know if I still love racing," he admitted. "Maybe I should retire while I'm still young." "Lewis, do you remember what you told me when you were 12 years old?" Carmen asked. "That I was going to be a Formula One driver." "No, you told me that racing felt like talking to angels. Do you still feel that way?" Lewis thought about it. Despite all the politics, pressure, and complications, he still felt something magical when he put on his helmet and drove at the limit. "Yes," he said quietly, "I still feel that." "Then the angels aren't finished with you yet," Carmen said. "Trust the process." A few months later, Lewis signed with Mercedes, a decision that would define the next chapter of his career. The move felt right in a way he couldn't explain, like the angels had guided him there. As Lewis's success grew, so did his awareness of social issues. He began speaking out about diversity in motorsport, about environmental concerns, about equality and justice. Some fans criticized him for being too political, but Carmen supported his evolution. "Your voice matters," she told him during one of their regular calls. "Use it wisely." "Are you sure? Some people think I should just stick to racing." "Lewis, remember what I taught you about 11:11? We make wishes for what's right, not what's easy." In 2015, Lewis established a foundation to help disadvantaged young people access motorsport opportunities. He kept most of his charitable work private, preferring to help quietly rather than seeking publicity. During the foundation's first event, a karting day for children from inner-city schools, Lewis watched a young black girl take her first laps in a go-kart. Her joy reminded him of his own first time behind the wheel. After the event, the girl approached Lewis shyly. "Mr. Hamilton, can I ask you something?" "Of course," Lewis said, kneeling down to her level. "Do you think I could be a race car driver like you someday?" Lewis looked into her hopeful eyes and saw himself at 9 years old, asking his mother about 1111 wishes for the first time. "I think you can be anything you want to be," Lewis said. "But you have to work hard and never give up. And you have to find people who believe in you. Like your mom." Lewis smiled. "Exactly like my mom." That evening, Lewis called Carmen to tell her about the little girl. "She reminded me of us," Lewis said, "of how this all started." "Maybe that's the point," Carmen said mysteriously. "Maybe. That's why you're where you are." "What do you mean?" "Lewis, do you remember asking me what my new wish was? The one you started making after I won the championship?" "Yes. I think it's time I told you." Lewis felt his heart rate increase. Carmen had kept this wish secret for 7 years. "I wish for you to understand that your success isn't just about you," Carmen said. "I wish for you to realize that every victory you achieve opens doors for other people. And I wish for you to know that this is your true calling." Lewis was quiet, processing her words. "You wish for me to become more than just a race car driver. I wish for you to become who you were always meant to be," Carmen said. "A leader, an inspiration, a force for good in the world." Lewis felt tears in his eyes. His mother had been preparing him for this moment his entire life, one 1111 wish at a time. "How did you know?" he asked. "Because I know my son," Carmen said simply. "And I've always known you were destined for something bigger than just driving fast cars." As Lewis hung up the phone that night, he realized that his mother's wishes had been shaping his life in ways he was only beginning to understand. The angels hadn't just been listening to their wishes, they had been answering them, one by one, preparing him for a purpose he was only now beginning to see clearly. But Carmen's biggest wish, the one that would test their faith more than any other, was still to come. Various F1 circuits and Mercedes facilities. 2013-2020 Lewis Hamilton's move to Mercedes in 2013 marked the beginning of the most successful period of his racing career. Championship after championship followed: 2014, 2015, 2017, 2018, 2019. With each victory, his platform grew larger and his voice became more powerful. But with great success came great responsibility, and Lewis was learning that his mother's wishes had prepared him for challenges far beyond the racetrack. The summer of 2020 changed everything. As the Black Lives Matter movement gained momentum around the world, Lewis found himself in a position he had never expected, leading conversations about racial justice in Formula One. Up before the Austrian Grand Prix, Lewis knelt during the national anthem, a gesture that sparked debate around the world. Some fans supported him completely. Others criticized him harshly, telling him to stick to racing. That evening, Lewis called Carmen from his hotel room in Austria, feeling overwhelmed by the reaction. "Mom, I'm not sure I did the right thing," Lewis said. "People are angry. They're saying I'm being too political. Are you sure about this path you're taking?" Carmen asked gently. "It's not an easy road, Lewis." Lewis thought about her question. The easy thing would be to stay quiet, to just race and avoid controversy. But something deep inside him knew that wasn't right. "Mom, you taught me that when angels are listening at 1111, we ask for what's right, not what's easy," Lewis replied. Carmen was quiet for a moment. Then Lewis heard her soft laugh through the phone. "I'm proud of you, baby," she said. "You're becoming exactly who you were meant to be." As the 2020 season continued, Lewis used his growing influence to push for change in Formula One. He worked with teams to increase diversity in the sport. He spoke out about equality at every opportunity. He won races and dedicated victories to social justice causes. But the most challenging part of 2020 wasn't the racing or the activism. It was watching Carmen work on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite being in her 60s, Carmen continued working as a healthcare worker, now dealing with the most dangerous health crisis of her lifetime. Lewis was terrified for her safety, but knew better than to ask her to stop working. "This is what I was put on Earth to do," Carmen told him during one of their video calls. She looked tired, more tired than Lewis had ever seen her. "Just like racing is what you were put here to do." "But Mom, it's so dangerous. You could get sick." "Lewis, I've spent my whole life taking care of people," Carmen said firmly. "I'm not going to stop now when people need me most." Lewis understood. His mother's calling was as strong as his own. They were both doing what they believed was right. Even when it was scary. In October 2020, Lewis achieved something that had seemed impossible just years before. At the Portuguese Grand Prix, he broke Michael Schumacher's all-time record for Formula One race wins. Victory number 92 was his. As Lewis stood on the podium, holding the Portuguese flag and looking out at the limited crowd due to pandemic restrictions. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. From karting in Stevenage to braking, the greatest record in motorsport history. In his post-race interview, Lewis was emotional. "This victory is for everyone who supported me, but especially for the healthcare workers around the world," he said, looking directly into the camera. "Including my mom, who's been on the front lines of this pandemic. You're all heroes." Carmen watched the interview from the hospital break room during her night shift. Her colleagues gathered around the small television, cheering for their friend's son who had just made history. "That's my boy," Carmen whispered, tears streaming down her face. That night, at 11:11 p.m., Lewis made a decision that had been growing in his mind for months. He was going to get a tattoo to honor his mother in their shared 11:11 ritual. But he wanted it to be perfect, meaningful beyond just the numbers. He called Carmen to tell her about his tattoo idea. "What will you put with the numbers?" she asked. "I don't know yet," Lewis admitted. "Maybe wings? Or a heart? Something that represents our connection." Carmen was quiet for a moment, and Lewis could sense she was thinking carefully. "Whatever you choose, make sure it tells the truth about what 11:11 really means to us," she said finally. "What do you mean?" 11:11 isn't just about making wishes, Lewis. It's about the connection between us that can never be broken. It's about love that transcends time and distance. Lewis was intrigued by her phrasing, but didn't press for more details. Carmen always spoke in ways that would make sense later. As 2020 turned into 2021, Lewis's activism continued to grow. He launched initiatives to increase diversity in motorsport. He spoke at universities about using privilege for positive change. He worked with organizations fighting climate change. Some people criticized him, saying he should focus only on racing. But Lewis felt more purpose in his life than ever before. During a quiet moment at home in London, Lewis was looking through old photos of himself and Carmen. He found one from his first karting victory, 12-year-old Lewis on the podium, pointing to his wrist, and Carmen in the crowd. Tears of joy on her face, he realized that his mother had been preparing him for this moment his entire life. Every 11:11 wish, every sacrifice she made, every lesson she taught him about using success to help others, it had all led to this. Lewis picked up his phone and called Carmen. "Mom, I understand now," he said when she answered. "Understand what? Baby, why you kept working all these years? Why you never wanted to retire? Why you always said your job gave your life meaning?" Carmen was quiet, waiting for him to continue. "You were showing me that having a platform means using it to take care of other people," Lewis said. "You were teaching me that success isn't about what you get, it's about what you give." "And now?" Carmen asked softly. "Now I know what my 11:11 wishes should really be about," Lewis said. "Not just asking for good things for us, but asking for strength to help other people achieve their dreams too." Carmen was crying now, though Lewis couldn't see it through the phone. "I'm so proud of you, Lewis," she whispered. "You've become everything I ever hoped you would be." "Because you showed me how," Lewis replied. "Every day of my life, you showed me how." After they hung up, Carmen sat in her small flat in Stevenage, looking at the same kitchen table where 9-year-old Lewis had first learned about 11:11 wishes. She had one more wish to make, the biggest and most difficult wish of her life. But she wasn't ready to share it yet, not even with Lewis. Some wishes, she knew, were too frightening to say out loud until the time was right. At 11:11 that night, Carmen closed her eyes and made the wish that would change everything. Private Tattoo Studio, London, March 2021. The small tattoo studio in East London was nothing like the glamorous places Lewis Hamilton usually visited. But Elena Rodriguez came highly recommended. She was known for creating meaningful tattoos that told stories, not just pretty pictures. Lewis sat in the consultation chair, explaining his idea to Elena. She was in her 40s, with kind eyes and hands covered in her own beautiful ink. Her studio walls were filled with photos of tattoos that looked more like art than body decoration. "Tell me about 11:11, Elena said, setting down her sketchpad. "What does it mean to you?" Lewis began the story he had told so many times, about his mother teaching him to make wishes when the clock showed those 4 numbers, about their ritual, that had lasted over 20 years. About how 1111 connected them no matter where he was in the world. Elena listened carefully, asking questions and making notes. But Louis could see something in her expression that suggested she was hearing more than just his words. "There's more to this story," Elena observed when Louis finished. "I can hear it in your voice. What aren't you telling me?" Louis paused. He had been thinking the same thing lately. There was something about his mother's recent behavior that felt different. Her voice sounded more tired during their phone calls. She seemed to be working even longer hours at the hospital. "I think my mom has been keeping something from me," Louis admitted. "Something about what she really wishes for at 1111. Elena set down her pen and looked directly at Louis. "Maybe you need to understand the complete story before we put it permanently on your skin." "What do you mean?" "Tattoos are forever, Louis. They become part of who you are. If this tattoo is about your connection with your mother, you should make sure you understand what that connection really means." Louis felt a chill run down his spine. Elena was right. He had been so focused on honoring their ritual that he hadn't stopped to think about what Carmen might be hiding. "What do you suggest?" Louis asked. "Go home. Talk to your mother. Ask her the questions you've been afraid to ask. Then come back when you're ready to tell the complete truth on your skin." That afternoon, Louis drove to Stevenage. Carmen was working a day shift, so he let himself into her flat with his spare key. The place looked exactly the same as always. The same furniture, the same flickering light, the same small kitchen table where their 1111 ritual had begun. But looking around now, Louis noticed things he had missed before. There were more medicine, bottles on the counter than usual. The refrigerator had appointment cards stuck to it with magnets. Carmen's work schedule on the wall showed she was working fewer hours than normal. Louis felt his stomach tighten with worry. Something was definitely wrong. When Carmen arrived home that evening, she found Louis sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for her. "Louis, what a lovely surprise," she said. But Louis could see that she looked startled, almost nervous. "Mom, we need to talk," Louis said gently. Carmen set down her bag and looked at her son. "Is everything okay?" "That's what I want to ask you," Louis replied. "Are you okay? Really okay?" Carmen's face changed slightly, and Louis knew he had touched on something she didn't want to discuss. "Of course I'm okay, baby. Why would you ask that?" Louis gestured to the medicine bottles, the appointment cards, the changed work schedule. "Because I'm not blind, Mom. Something's different." Carmen sat down across from him at the table. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Louis could see his mother weighing her words carefully. "I went to see the tattoo artist today," Louis said. "About the 1111 tattoo." "That's wonderful. What did you decide?" "She told me I should understand the complete story before I put it on my skin forever," Louis said. "Mom, what's the complete story? What are you not telling me?" Carmen closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, Louis saw something he had never seen before: fear. "Louis, some conversations are harder than others," she said quietly. "Is it your health?" Louis asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Carmen didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. "Mom, please. Whatever it is, we can face it together. We've faced everything else together." Carmen reached across the table and took Louis's hands. "Do you remember what I taught you about 1111? About making wishes for the people you love?" "Of course. For the past 3 years, my wishes have been changing," Carmen said slowly. "They've been getting more specific." Louis felt his heart racing. "What kind of specific?" Carmen looked at the clock on the wall. It was 11:10 p.m. "Let's make our wishes together tonight," she said. "Like we used to when you were little." They watched the clock hand move to 11:11. Both closed their eyes. Louis made his usual wish for Carmen's health and happiness. But when he opened his eyes, he could see that Carmen was still praying, her lips moving silently, her face intense. With concentration, finally, she opened her eyes. "What did you wish for, Mom?" Louis asked. Carmen was quiet for a long moment. "I wish for you to be strong enough for what's coming. I wish for you to know that you're ready for the next part of your journey. And I wish for you to understand that some stories have endings, but love goes on forever." Louis felt tears forming in his eyes. "Mom, what's wrong? Please tell me." Carmen squeezed his hands tighter. "Louis, I need you to listen carefully. There's something I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want it to change how you lived your life." "What is it?" Carmen took another deep breath. "I was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, baby. I've been fighting it quietly, But the words hit Louis like a physical blow. What? Cancer? Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want it to become the most important thing about me, Carmen said, tears flowing now. I didn't want you to see me as a sick woman instead of your strong mom. Louis was crying now too, but I could have helped. I could have gotten you the best doctors, the best treatment. I have good doctors, Louis. I've been fighting this properly, but some battles have uncertain outcomes. Are you? Louis couldn't finish the question. The doctors aren't sure how much time I have, Carmen said gently. Maybe a year. Maybe more if I'm lucky. That's why my 11/11 wishes changed. I'm not wishing for me anymore. I'm wishing for you to be okay when I'm gone. Louis broke down completely, putting his head in his hands. Carmen came around the table and held him while they both cried. This is why you keep working, Louis realized through his tears. This is why you won't retire. I want to live every day I have left doing what gives my life meaning, Carmen confirmed. Taking care of people, just like I've always taken care of you. How long have you known? Louis asked. 2 years, Carmen admitted. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I kept waiting for the right moment. There's no right moment for this, Louis said. No, Carmen agreed. There isn't. They sat together in the quiet of the small flat, holding each other and crying. Outside, Stevenage was sleeping peacefully, unaware that in one small kitchen, a mother and son were facing the hardest truth they had ever shared. Finally, Louis pulled back and looked at his mother. The tattoo, he said. Now I understand what it should be. Carmen wiped her eyes. What? It's not just about 11/11, Louis said. It's about time. About making every moment count. About love that lasts even when time runs out. Carmen smiled through her tears. Now you're ready for that tattoo. Will you help me design it? Louis asked. I would be honored, Carmen said at that moment. Louis knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, one 11/11 wish at a time. Carmen's home, Stevenage. December 2021 Christmas at Carmen's flat felt different this year. Louis had insisted on spending the entire holiday week with his mother, canceling all other plans. The small living room was decorated with the same modest ornaments Carmen had used for years, but everything carried new weight now. They had fallen into a new rhythm over the past 9 months since Carmen's revelation. Louis visited more often, sometimes surprising her after races by flying directly to London instead of going home to Monaco. Carmen had finally agreed to reduce her work hours, but she still refused to stop completely. Taking care of people is who I am, she would say whenever Louis suggested full retirement. I'm not ready to give up who I am. On Christmas Eve, they shared their traditional dinner at the small kitchen table. Carmen had made curry goat and rice and peas, just like always. But Louis noticed she ate smaller portions now, and she seemed more tired than usual. As they finished eating, Louis saw Carmen check her phone for the time. The familiar ritual was approaching. 11:11 is coming, Louis observed. Carmen nodded, but her expression was more serious than usual. Louis, there's something else I need to tell you. Louis felt his stomach tighten. After months of thinking he knew the whole truth, there was more. What is it, Mom? Carmen stood up slowly and walked to her bedroom. She returned carrying a small notebook with a worn leather cover. Louis had never seen it before. What's that? He asked. Carmen sat back down and placed the notebook on the table between them. This contains every 11/11 wish I've made for 26 years. From the very first one when you were 9 years old. Louis stared at the notebook, not understanding why it looked so heavy in Carmen's hands. You wrote them all down. Every single one, Carmen confirmed. I wanted to remember them. I wanted to track how they were answered. And I wanted. She paused, struggling with her words. I wanted you to have them someday. Louis reached for the notebook, but Carmen gently stopped his hand. Before you read them, I need to explain something, she said. The wishes changed 3 years ago, not just because of my diagnosis, but because of what the diagnosis made me realize. What do you mean? Carmen opened the notebook to a page near the end. Look at this entry. Louis read the date, March 3rd, 2018. The wish was written in Carmen's careful handwriting. I wish for Louis to understand that my time with him is precious, and for him to be ready when I have to go. Louis looked up, confused and frightened. Mom, what does this mean? You wrote this in 2018, but you said you were diagnosed 2 years ago. Carmen's eyes filled with tears. I was diagnosed in early 2017, Lewis. I've been fighting this for 4 years, not 2. The words hit Lewis like a physical blow. What? For years? Why did you lie to me? Because I didn't want it to change how you lived your life, Carmen said, her voice breaking. You were at the peak of your career. You were finding your voice as an activist. You were becoming everything I had always hoped you would be. I couldn't bear the thought of my illness overshadowing all of that. Lewis stood up abruptly, pacing around the small kitchen. But I had a right to know. I could have spent more time with you. I could have helped you fight this. You did help me fight this, Carmen said firmly. Every victory you achieved, every person you inspired, every time you used your platform for good, that gave me strength to keep fighting. Lewis stopped pacing and looked at his mother. She seemed smaller than he remembered, more fragile. How bad is it now? He asked quietly. Carmen closed her eyes for a moment. The doctors think I have maybe a year left. Maybe less. Lewis felt the room spinning around him. A year. Maybe less. How is that possible? He sat back down and reached for the notebook. Can I read them? All of them. Carmen hesitated. Some of them might be hard to read. I need to understand. Mom, I need to see the whole picture. Carmen pushed the notebook toward him. Start from the beginning. Lewis opened to the first page. The date was December 15th, 1995. Carmen's younger handwriting was a bit messy, but the words were clear. I wish for Lewis to find his purpose and know he's loved unconditionally. Lewis turned the pages slowly, reading wish after wish. The early ones were about his safety. During races, his happiness, his success. Carmen had documented his entire journey through her 11:11 prayers. As he read deeper into the notebook, Lewis began to see the pattern. Carmen hadn't just been making random wishes. She had been carefully, deliberately preparing him for a life without her. Wishes for him to be strong. Wishes for him to find his voice. Wishes for him to understand his responsibility to others. Wishes for him to be ready for leadership. And then, starting in 2017, the wishes changed completely. March 15th, 2017. I wish for Lewis to understand that my time with him is precious, and for him to find peace when I'm gone. June 8th, 2017. I wish for Lewis to know that love doesn't end when life ends. September 22nd, 2017. I wish for Lewis to carry our 11:11 ritual forward and teach others about making wishes for people they love. Lewis looked up at Carmen, tears streaming down his face. You've been preparing me. Carmen nodded. For 4 years. Every wish has been about getting you ready. Ready for what? Ready to live without me, but never forget how much I love you. Lewis closed the notebook and reached across the table to take Carmen's hands. I don't know how to be ready for that. You don't have to know, Carmen said gently. You just have to trust that you are ready, because I've been preparing you your whole life. They sat in silence for several minutes, holding hands across the table where their 11:11 ritual had begun so many years ago. Finally, Lewis spoke. Is this why you wanted me to get the tattoo? Because you knew I would need something permanent to remember you by? Partly, Carmen admitted, but also because I wanted you to have a way to continue our ritual even when I can't be here to share it with you. Lewis felt a new understanding wash over him. The tattoo wasn't just about honoring their past. It was about carrying their connection into the future. What happens now? Lewis asked. Now we make the most of the time we have left, Carmen said. And we trust that 26 years of 11:11 wishes have prepared us for whatever comes next. Lewis looked at the clock on the wall. It was 11:10 p.m. One more minute, he said. They watched the clock together, just as they had done thousands of times before. When the numbers changed to 11:11, both closed their eyes. But this time, Lewis didn't wish for Carmen's health or happiness. Instead, he wished for the strength to honor everything she had taught him. He wished for the courage to live the life she had prepared him for, and he wished for her to know that her love would live on through him forever. When they opened their eyes, Carmen was smiling through her tears. What did you wish for? Lewis asked. That you would understand that this isn't an ending, Carmen said. It's a transformation. Our love doesn't stop when my life stops. It just changes form. Lewis nodded, feeling something shift inside him. For the first time since learning about Carmen's illness, he felt something other than fear. He felt purpose. I understand now, he said. The 1111 wishes weren't just about asking for things. They were about preparing us for this moment. Exactly, Carmen said. And now you're ready. As they sat together in the quiet of Christmas Eve, Louis realized that his mother's greatest gift to him wasn't the 1111 ritual itself. It was the 26 years of love and preparation that had made him strong enough to face what was coming. Tomorrow, he would get the tattoo, and when he did, he would finally understand what it truly meant to carry someone's love with you forever. Various locations. 2022-2024 The real meaning of 11:11 The months following Carmen's complete revelation became the most precious Louis had ever experienced. He restructured his entire world around spending time with her, flying back to London between races, bringing her to circuits when her health allowed. Carmen continued working part-time at the hospital when she felt strong enough. Louis accompanied her one morning and watched her interact with patients. For the first time, he truly understood why she could never give up her calling. "She's your mom." An elderly patient named Mr. Williams asked Louis as Carmen checked his medication. "Yes, sir," Louis replied. "She's an angel," Mr. Williams said with a warm smile. "Always checking on us at exactly 11:11 every day. Says that's when the good thoughts are strongest." Louis felt his heart skip a beat. "She does what?" "Every day at 11:11, morning and evening." Another patient, Mrs. Chun, chimed in from the next bed. "Your mom comes around and asks us to think good thoughts for someone we love. She says it's a special time." Louis looked at Carmen, who was pretending not to listen but clearly smiling. She had been sharing their family ritual with her patients, spreading hope and comfort to people who needed it most. "She taught us that making wishes for other people is more powerful than wishing for ourselves," Mr. Williams continued. "My granddaughter got into university last month. I've been wishing for her education every day at 11:11 for 3 years." Louis realized his mother had been creating a network of 11:11 wishers throughout the hospital. She was multiplying their ritual's power by teaching others to love through wishes. As 2022 progressed, Carmen's condition worsened more rapidly than anyone had expected. By autumn, she was too weak to work regularly, but she insisted on attending Louis's races when possible, wearing her brave face for the cameras while Louis carried the weight of knowing their time was running out at the Brazilian Grand Prix. In November 2022, Carmen made what would be her final appearance at a race. She sat in the Mercedes hospitality area, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm Sao Paulo weather. Louis won the race, and during his victory celebration, he pointed to the hospitality suite where Carmen was watching. She touched her wrist and mouthed 11:11 to him, just as she had done when he was 12 years old and won his first karting race. In March 2023, Carmen's condition deteriorated rapidly. Louis canceled everything to be with her. During her final weeks, they maintained their 11:11 ritual, but now Carmen was often too weak to speak her wishes aloud. "Your turn to make the wishes now," she told Louis during one of her clearer moments. "What should I wish for?" "Whatever feels right in your heart," Carmen said softly. "The angels know what we need before we ask." On her last day, Carmen drifted in and out of consciousness. Louis sat beside her hospital bed, holding her hand. At 11:11 a.m., he leaned close and whispered, "I wish for you to know that you succeeded in everything you ever hoped for me. I wish for you to go peacefully, knowing you're the best mom in the world." Carmen squeezed his hand weakly and whispered, "My final wish came true." "What was it?" Louis asked, though he could barely hear her response. "That you would know how to live without me, but never forget how much I love you." Carmen Hamilton passed away at 11:11 p.m. that same day, March 15th, 2023. The tattoo's true meaning. 6 months later, Louis returned to Elena Rodriguez's tattoo studio. This time, he knew exactly what the tattoo should represent. The grief had been overwhelming, but through it, he had found clarity about what his mother had been preparing him for. "I'm ready now," Louis told Elena as he sat in her chair. Elena had followed Louis's story in the media, understanding that he had lost his mother. "Tell me what you want." "The numbers 11 verse 11 in my mom's handwriting," Louis said, pulling out a page from Carmen's wish journal. "And underneath, an infinity symbol intertwined with angel wings." "What does it mean to you now?" Elena asked as she prepared the design. "It's not just about the time," Louis explained. It's about the infinite connection between a mother and son, the wishes that continue even when she's gone, the love that transforms but never ends. Elena worked carefully, creating the tattoo on Louis's inner wrist where he could see it every day. As the needle moved across his skin, Louis felt like his mother was with him. The infinity symbol represents our eternal bond, Louis continued as Elena worked. The angel wings represent her watching over me. And the 1111 means that twice every day, I remember to make wishes for people I love, just like she taught me. When Elena finished, Louis looked at the tattoo through tears. It was perfect. Carmen's handwriting was preserved forever on his skin, and every element told the story of their journey together. The reveal back to Silverstone, July 2024 returning. To the present moment at the Silverstone Media Center, Louis had just finished explaining the basic story of his tattoo to Sarah Chun. But he had kept the deepest parts private. Carmen's death, the journal of wishes, the years of hidden illness. When did you get it? Sarah asked gently, sensing there was more to the story. 6 months ago, Louis said, his voice steady now. On the anniversary of the day, my mom taught me about 1111. He didn't mention that it was also 6 months after Carmen's death. Do you still make wishes at 1111? Louis nodded. Every day? Same wish every time. What do you wish for? Louis looked directly into the camera, knowing millions would see this moment. His mother had taught him that having a platform meant using it to help others. I wish that every person watching this knows they're loved the way my mom loved me. Unconditionally, powerfully, forever. He rolled down his sleeve, covering the tattoo, but not before the camera caught one final detail Sarah hadn't noticed before. Tiny letters below the infinity symbol, H, always. This H stands for Carmen Hamilton, Louis explained. So she's always with me. Every wish, every race, every moment. She's always there. As the interview ended, Louis checked his phone. The time showed 11:11 a.m. He closed his eyes for a moment, made his daily wish, and smiled. Somewhere, he knew his mother was listening. Final scene that evening, Louis made a decision that would have made Carmen proud. For the first time since her death, he posted on social media about losing her. The post showed the tattoo clearly, along with a photo of him and Carmen at his first Formula One race. The caption read, "My mom taught me that 1111 is when angels are listening. Today I learned that some angels never stop listening, even when they become angels themselves. This tattoo isn't just about a time. It's about a love that's infinite. Miss you every day, Mom." Red heart number 1111 hashtag AngelMom hashtag forever watching. The post received millions of likes and comments from fans sharing their own stories of loss, love, and the special rituals they shared with their mothers. But the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. The hospital where Carmen had worked shared a video of Mr. Williams and Mrs. Chun, along with dozens of other patients, all making 1111 wishes together in Carmen's memory. "She taught us that love multiplies when you share it," Mr. Williams said. In the video, "Every day at 1111, we continue her tradition. We make wishes for the people we love, just like she taught us." Louis realized that his mother's legacy wasn't just in him. She had created a community of wishers who would carry on the 1111 tradition long after both of them were gone. That night, Louis visited a children's hospital in London. He didn't tell the media. This was private. He sat with young patients and taught them about making wishes at 1111. "But not for yourself," Louis told a little girl who was recovering from surgery. "Always wish for someone you love. The angels like those wishes best." "How do you know?" the girl asked. Louis touched his wrist where the tattoo lay hidden beneath his sleeve. "Because my mom told me so, and moms always know about angels." As Louis left the hospital, he looked at his watch. 11:11 p.m. He closed his eyes and made his wish, not for himself, but for all the children he had just met. For all the mothers working night shifts to support their children's dreams. For everyone who needed to know they were loved. The story ended not with Louis racing cars, but with Louis continuing Carmen's work of spreading hope exactly when people needed it most. The 1111 tattoo had become more than a memorial. It was a reminder that love shared is love multiplied. And somewhere in the infinite space between earth and heaven, Carmen Hamilton smiled, knowing her greatest wish had finally come true. And that's the end of Lewis Hamilton's incredible 11/11 story. Carmen Hamilton's love continues to inspire millions around the world through her son's tattoo and the beautiful ritual she taught him. Every day at 11/11, people remember to make wishes not for themselves, but for those they love most. That we'd love to know. Where are you listening from today? Drop your location in the comments below and tell us if you have a special ritual with someone you love, just like Lewis and Carmen's 11/11 tradition. That if this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more incredible, inspiring stories like this one. Your support helps us bring you amazing content every week. Most importantly, please share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Carmen and Lewis's remind us all about the power of unconditional love and the importance of cherishing every moment with the people who matter most. By sharing this story, you're helping spread kindness and awareness about what truly matters in life. Remember, love doesn't end when life ends. It just transforms into something eternal, just like Carmen taught Lewis. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story. Keep making those 11/11 wishes for the people you love.